Hello and welcome to the Dripping Hartnell Podcast. I'm Connor Chadwick and I'm joined by Abby Louise.
Hi.
Connor J. Sumner.
Hi.
Jimi Wolfe.
Hello.
And Aidan O'Connor.
Oh,
And today we
Why
have...
was Jimmy's greeting the only normal one?
you say that, but I keep doing that. I keep doing that intro. I just go. I keep thinking I'm just sounding like I'm saying hello. But anybody who watches The Simpsons will know the bit where Homer's guarding a massive mound of sugar, and he pulls out this British guy, and he goes, "Hello." That's what I sound like every time I say hello, and I can't unhear it.
Anyway, Connor, continue.
There, yeah.
And we have just watched An Unearthly Child, but not quite the one you would immediately assume. We watched the
Not the
unaired
one you were
pilot.
expecting.
Indeed, we watched the unaired pilot that was shown to Sidney Newman, of which he promptly tore apart and got them to reshoot. And the one that you were all thinking of was the one that got made. So, yeah,
Yes.
discuss.
I will say this: if you're able to find the unaired pilot, give it a go,
Yeah.
because it's completely different to what actually.
It's an
got put out.
interesting watch.
The same events happen, but it's like the characters are unfinished.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what's weird.
Everyone's a lot more stern. I feel a lot more. You get an impression it was made. Put it this way: the pilot was definitely made with more of an adult audience in mind.
Yes.
I think it was definitely aimed more at the adult side of the family audience. I think it was the idea that they were going to. I think the idea was the concept of time, space, aliens is what meant to appeal to the children.
Yeah.
But the actual acting, the actual sort of drama side of it was definitely written and portrayed to be more towards the adults.
And it was meant to be an
Yeah.
educational show.
Yes.
Yeah.
It portrayed itself as very, like, this version feels a lot more formal.
Yeah.
It feels
Like, this is just the introduction to the concept, and the next episode is really the one you're tuning in for.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like, one of those indie short films, because it's a lot of like, you can really tell they're just like, we're really trying with this.
It does have a very fan feel film about it, I
Yeah.
have to say.
Fan feel film.
Good.
Fan feel film.
film.
Fan feel film.
Fan feel film.
I will say this, and I mentioned it all the way through, and I'm going to bring it up now. Susan is portrayed completely differently.
like all slinking
but then
about
we
the
added
place.
the edge of destruction, Susan.
It was literally the
could-
edge of destruction, Susan. Yeah, 100%.
I think, to be honest, when you know the context of the characters here in this version of the of Unearthly Child, they are actually meant to be. They don't really say if they're human or not. They don't.
Yeah.
They say that they're not of these people. So they're definitely evolved in some shape or form.
And they mention having their own planet.
They're on their own planet in the 49th century. So for them, and for them, obviously, we get the little flashbacks of Susan annoying the teachers and saying things that don't line up with the current history or the current scientific theory of like maths, chemical reactions, science that has moved forward since then to the 49th century, and now they're to live in the 20th. The problem is, I feel, which is why I think they went so much better, was they went with a very fixed origin.
Yeah.
But there were also some things that Hartnell did that I kind of wish they'd kept. Like he gave good examples when he was talking to Susan about not being able to let go. He gave really good
Yeah.
examples of what if Napoleon had got the aeroplane.
That's a
all
lovely
these-
speech.
What if the
yeah.
Romans
Yeah.
had gunpowder?
Exactly. And then he talks about the idea of, don't you realize that if we let them go, they'll start to think, and
Yeah.
then they will start to realize that maybe it's possible, and we will have changed the course of history. And then within seconds later, after we've been made to forget about that just for a second, Barbara then goes, but what if it is possible? And
Yeah.
Hartnell just mutters to himself, going, the early beginnings, and then just walks off and dematerializes the TARDIS. He's like, it's done. I just what? But like, it's those little. They didn't keep a lot of his ominousness like that.
Yeah.
He's
But I
much
think it's
more.
also-
Sorry.
No, he comes across as a little like him and Susan come across as a lot more hostile in this.
I was
story.
going to say,
They
there's
literally look like Bond villains.
they are
Yeah.
a lot more dark. They're not necessarily. I wouldn't go so far as to say evil, but you do get the impression that it's, like I said, it's the way that Susan is sort of moves and the way that she stands. They're both very sort of imperious. You get the feeling that no matter what happens, they look down on Ian and Barbara. Because that's the point, is they don't want them. It's not that they don't want them. It's not that they don't want them to know the secrets of the TARDIS. They don't. But it's more the fact that they don't want them there, because it's kind of, you get that impression of they're like, you shouldn't be in. You know, it's almost sort of,
This is beyond you.
yeah. It's almost a bit. You know, I apologize if I'm using this in the wrong term, but I can't think of a better word. It's almost slightly segregationist. If they're turning around and going, "We're better than you. Go away.
We're better. You have to go over there.
You are mere humans. We are from a much more advanced society." And and it's, I'm glad that that went out of the pilot, because it really doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It just,
I think the other thing that was different that we noticed was Barbara and Ian weren't as chummy.
No.
Like towards the end, everybody, well, they get together. They were meant to be together, and it doesn't feel like that mindset wasn't there with this one. They were much more stern teachers.
They were just colleagues.
Yeah. I think the other thing I like that they changed was the costumes for Susan and the Doctor. Because I know that they weren't necessarily supposed to be alien in this pilot, but the Doctor's outfit just feels too normal to me.
Too contemporary, yeah.
Yeah. And
it looks good, but it doesn't feel right.
Good. It doesn't feel right for the Doctor. And Susan's outfit, bearing in mind in the pilot she was 15, not 16.
Yeah.
She's dressed, a lot of her clothes are tighter, and you can tell that Carol Ann Ford is not 15.
No, yeah, it's and it's just a bit seedy, considering they're putting a character who is supposed to be 15 in these such like tie outfits, showing off all the curves. Whoa!
They did show off all her curves.
She's like slinking about the place.
Yeah, she was. I'm glad they upped her age a little bit, even if even by just that year
to a legal standard.
Yes.
The thing is, in the interest of saying about how that we say they're glad they changed the costumes. The fact that when you think about it, the Doctor especially, they really did his costume great. When you consider the only thing that they really changed between the pilot and the finished episode was to give him a different neckwear, and a waistcoat.
And jacket,
and even then the waistcoat might have been under the jacket, but realistically he has a conventional tie on in this, but in obviously the finished episode he has the more sort of Edwardian. But again, it shows that they really sort of, it was the very small things that they changed but it's interesting on the flip side of that, the things that were in this that then got cut out. And one of the things that stands out to me, because I've talked about this before and I think a video I've done is in the pilot, when they're outside the TARDIS and open the door, we get to see the TARDIS interior. And I think I'm right in saying this, that never happens again until Colony in Space, when we see the interior of the Master's TARDIS from the outside. And I always look at it and think, like, if they could do that, why did they do it then and then they never did it again? Because it can't have been a hugely complex shot to do. And it's always odd, I find, when you watch especially later classic ones where the interior of the TARDIS is just black.
Yeah.
And it's just odd that they could have just had that, like they do. But it's interesting. But it's also, and I know Connor mentioned this, and I'll this is my way of poking him into talking about it. But it was some of the line changes, but not necessarily line changes. Some of the simple, smaller lines that were missing. That were it's just odd that they sort of didn't have them. Because you said they had there was the line about that Hartnell says about them when they start to notice things or something like that.
Yes. I like it because he's trying to be a lot more of an ominous figure in this original version. He kind of talks about Ian and Barbara like almost like they're the equivalent of cavemen to them.
Yeah.
He talks about them and goes, see how they notice, see how they watch us. And he doesn't quite
like
do that. Yeah. Yeah, but he doesn't quite do that in the other one. He leans into it a little bit, but the way he talks about it in this one is very much like we're watching animals. Like animals are watching us and learning, like the cavemen learning about fire is how he treats it.
But it's weirdly,
What I've also done is I've been looking up the PDF of the script from Adventure in Space and Time to see the scene when Sidney gave his review of this. Sidney Newton. Obviously, I know it's not 100% accurate, but the line I've been able to find from the shooting script says, take out the reference to the future time they've come from. 49th century, it's too specific. This is Doctor Who, remember? The old guy's too nasty. He should be cuter and funnier. The kid should be more cheeky too, like a regular teenager. And that scene inside the time machine, absolutely awful. And then he talks about how he hates the move, how he hates like, the theme tune and stuff. But that obviously stuck. But like a lot of that stuff that you see there in those notes, those are the main gripes we've actually got as well. Yeah.
I prefer she is like a robot. I think I preferred how they changed the TARDIS set as well.
Yeah.
Well, not a lot was really changed. It was very.
That clock wasn't there, was it?
How dare you?
I think it was.
It was.
Sure it was.
It was.
Was the clock there? The backdrop.
They shifted the space to make it easier for them to move.
Yeah.
Because I believe they still got the two chairs, and then in the middle is the stand with the little, like, they've got like I think it's like a spire.
Yeah.
Design. I think they've got that in the middle, and they've got like a little clock there as well. But but no, a lot of what from that script is mentioned is very much what they changed, and I agree with what was said earlier about the Bond villain comment, because it literally cuts to Hartnell sits in a chair with his leg crossed like this.
Yeah.
And Susan stands next
standing
to him.
there like that.
Yeah, they kind of just look and it's looking up at them anyway. The camera angle's looking up at them like they're stood above, even though they're sat. But nonetheless, that's the impression it gives. And when you look at what they end up doing, like for example, when they try to get out and Hartnell's just cackling.
Yeah,
it's creepy.
That was a proper evil laugh going on.
But that's the thing. It's like
it was a cackle though. It wasn't like his cheeky little giggle, was it?
No, exactly. Like,
do you expect to hold me hostage, Doctor Who? No, Mr. Chesterton. I expect you to die.
Exactly.
I will say this though, and after because all of us have obviously seen an Adventure in Space and Time, all of us were watching the doors open and close in the back of shop.
Yeah. For example, what they changed, number one thing they changed was, it was, when Ian goes right up to the Doctor and says, "Open the doors, open the doors." In the other one, Hartnell just is like kind of chuckling to himself, and it's played off a lot, and you don't feel any lighter towards that. It feels a bit lighter because he's just like having a little chuckle. Whereas in the other one, he's completely stern faced. In the original, he's stern faced and then only laughs when they hurt themselves, or become really desperate. But like, I mean, in all fairness, I think to be honest, I still find it a little bit surprising they kept the fact that the Doctor tried to murder Ian by electrocuting him. In there, but nonetheless,
that's
But I always wonder: was that him trying to electrocute him or just incapacitate him? Well, I like to think it's the latter, but
because he has this little sweet chuckle afterwards when it happens, it's an idea of going, don't do that kind of thing, rather than I'm going to murder you.
I am going to kill you.
But yes, Aidan, what did you want to say, my dude?
I'm trying to remember. No, my train of thought.
Sorry. Was it about script changes? Was it about script changes?
Yeah, because it's just like when you look at it, you can really see where like they did the one key thing that's kept is that like this is how I see early Doctor Who now. You see Ian and Barbara as the sort of main protagonists of it, like, because it takes you time to get used to Susan and the Doctor because they're essentially the outer worldly people. Ian and Barbara are like us at this period in time, so it's like at least they're still keeping it. But in this one, it just seems like Ian and Barbara are like victims, just pure victims of this.
Yeah, it very much feels. What's it called?
What's Hostile?
Yeah, Hostile. But I'm thinking of a specific film. Is it Encounters of the Third Kind?
Close Encounters.
Close Encounters.
Yeah. But like sort of like that, like because they're kind of curious about these people, but then they don't quite act human, and that means that we can't relate. Whereas with Susan, when they reshot the flashback stuff, she says the exact same lines, but gives it a bit more emphasis and a bit more humanity to it. And immediately you're like, something's not quite right, but you have a kind of understanding that something's not quite right. It's just something we're missing. And the way that she speaks, the moment they walk in and she's so hostile to them up front, was in the other one, she's kind of desperate and so upset that they found it. Because she realizes she's just lost her place here now. She's now aware that this is over, and she's so like, she's so desperate. Like what? Like in the one that got aired, she's like, when she asks, "What are you doing here?" She's so sad that they found it. Whereas in this one, she's just like really aggressive, and it doesn't make you on board. It doesn't give you more intrigue. It doesn't make you question things in the right way. I feel like
it doesn't make you think, oh, who are these people? Like,
I feel like you'd be more on. Yeah, you'd be more on Barbara and Ian's side when you'd be like, I want to get home. Yeah. It's like so you don't want to go on that adventure.
Yeah, because I can understand Hartnell's reservations to it. When he's just like, I believe these people are known to you. Yeah. But it's Susan that really makes you feel off-putted.
Yeah, I think like the one thing with the actual episode that came out like is that it's a bit more like you like in that one you feel like the first Doctor and Susan are they are also stuck like also there's misfortune on them because the TARDIS, we find out later on obviously the Doctor doesn't know how to properly fly the machine, but it's just like you see a lot more distress from them in that one, whereas in this one it just seems like okay, they kind of seem like they have control over this machine. They're just not going to, give any of that control.
Am I right in thinking as well in the aired episode that they didn't show the TARDIS until Barbara and Ian saw the TARDIS?
No, you saw it at the beginning.
Did you see the TARDIS at the beginning?
They just didn't have the theme tune play for like a minute after.
Oh, that's what it was.
That's why it feels different because that's why. Sidney Newman makes the comment about the music being awful is because it plays for like 2 minutes.
No, just like you can wrap it up now.
Yeah, but so overall, I feel like it's a really weird feeling watching it when you know how it actually started, but this is really how it started. Yeah, and in a way, I always find that the best kind of shows always start off with a bit of a trip.
Yeah.
And then but it's about how they pick themselves back up again. And ultimately, almost in a way, and I know this is going to sound obvious because Sidney Newman was at the very beginning, I kind of see the way that RTD now treats Who. He's like our Sidney Newman now.
Yeah,
because the notes he gave, the notes that Sidney Newman gave, ultimately changed the show in a way that made it where we are now and helped it continue. In the way that RTD has brought everything together now with the Who-niverse and everything. And I really loved what he wrote. He posted something on Instagram recently, RTD, saying about how there is no classic Who, there is no revival Who.
It's all one thing now.
This is it.
And I said this while we were watching it. It's like if they had aired that original thing, it would not have gotten to 60 years.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
I will say this though before we start ending. We are very lucky that we still have this.
Yeah.
Yes.
You think of the amount of Who that's disappeared into the abyss, and we are so lucky to be able to sit and watch the unaired pilot because you would have thought they would have just burnt it.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I've discovered something very interesting. So it says, according to the TARDIS Wiki, 5 different versions of this initial take on Earthly Child have been made available to the public over the years, creating some ambiguity over what is meant by the pilot. There's many different versions, but it says here, interesting, the 36-minute version on the DVD included not just all available recorded material, but also, and I genuinely didn't know this, I'm going to have to go and watch it, a commentary by Verity Lambert and other key personnel, which detailed the reasons why certain elements of the pilot were changed for an unearthly child.
So we need to go find this now.
Right,
guys.
next episode. Next episode sorted. Perfect.
All of us back.
So yeah,
that.
if you have the DVD from the beginning box set, there you can go and listen to.
I'm sure
I will
Verity
begin
explain
searching. I'll begin searching
Yes.
immediately.
I have the beginning box set. I think
It's under my bed.
Jess Green, go. Right. So, yeah.
Indeed. Well, I suppose then, thank you all for listening. Thank you everyone for being here, for enjoying my Hartnell-gasm. And
no,
and yes, indeed.
Oh, that's an episode title.
On that,
I was going to say something that would really date this recording.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why Hartnell is dripping.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Yes, indeed. Well, thank you all for listening, and we will all see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.